joining us on CCN. I'm Shantae, and Crystal and I will be your news anchors today. Today's topic is addiction. Is it a medical disease or a moral defect? Today, we will be drawing from two articles with opposing views. I'll be discussing Article 1, which states Stigma Attribution and Cultural Models of Addiction Casualty in a University Population, penned by Nicole L. Henderson and William W. Dressler. Addiction is a pattern of repeated substance use that continues even when it harms a person's health, relationship, or daily life. This study looks at how college students explain addiction and how those explanations shape the way they judge people with substance use disorder. Students, they shared a common set of ideas about what addiction leads to. Their responses formed 5 themes: biological factors like genetics, self-medication factors like stress, depression, or trauma, family influences like poor home life, social influences like peer pressure, and hedonistic motives like boredom, enjoyment, or curiosity. The research team, they carried out 3 steps. First, students listed all causes they believed were important. Second, they sorted those causes into groups, which showed clear agreement on the 5 themes. Third, they rated how influential each cause was. Stress, depression, repetitive use, and poor home life were rated the highest. These ratings revealed 2 main viewpoints. One group leaned toward a medical explanation, focusing on biological and self-medication causes. Another group, they leaned towards a moral explanation, focusing on social and hedonistic causes. Students who leaned towards the moral explanation, they showed a higher stigma. And students who leaned toward the medical explanation, they showed lower stigma. The discussion section highlights a key point. Students learn mixed messages from years of drug education and public health messaging. Their views shape how they judge people with addiction and influence whether those individuals seek help. Now, let's hear some interviews in the field.
Wow, thank you, Shantae, for that amazing recap of our first article, as well as those interviews. Thank you for tuning back into CCN. My name is Crystal, and I'll be your other news anchor. For our second article, we chose Addiction is a Choice, Not a Disease. In this article, the author Slate argues against the idea that addiction is a brain disease. Groups like the National Institute on Drug Abuse define addiction as a chronic brain disease that causes compulsive drug use. The word compulsive means something a person cannot control. Slate disagrees with this definition. In the introduction, Slate explains that real diseases like cancer or diabetes involve physical malfunction in the body. He says the brain changes seen in people who use drugs are not malfunctions. Instead, they are examples of neuroplasticity, which means that the brain can change and adapt based on repeated behaviors and thoughts. For example, Slate talks about brain scan studies and research on reward programs. He explains that when people practice something a lot, like playing music or even doing drugs, their brain changes. He also describes studies where people struggling with addiction were given rewards for staying sober. Many of them stopped using when given incentives, which he says shows their behavior was not completely out of control. In the resultant discussion, Slate concludes that addiction does not fit the definition of a disease because the brain can change back. He says shows their behavior was not completely out of control. In the resultant discussion, Slate concludes that addiction does not fit the definition of a disease because the brain can change back. And people can make different choices. He believes calling it addiction a disease takes away any personal responsibility. Overall, Slate presents the argument that addiction is more about choice than illness, and he challenges the common brain disease model.
Why do you think people get addicted to substances?
I think people get addicted to substances because they're kind of chasing the same feeling they got when they first got high.
Okay.
Like when you abuse a substance, you're kind of just hoping that you're gonna get the same feeling you got as you did it the first time. But as you continue to abuse those substances, you kind of build a tolerance to them. So you're just continuously chasing that same feeling, that first high.
And in what ways do you think mental health issues contributes in addictions?
A lot of people just want an escape from reality, from their issues at home, from the issues that they may face in the future. And it gets a hold of them, and that's kind of like their comfort place.
How do you think that affects people's families and relationships?
Definitely doesn't make them better. I think it makes it very hard for people to try and help those individuals with substance abuse.
Okay.
But it's hard to try and help those that don't want help themselves. Because a majority of the time, people that abuse substances don't think it's an issue. And they continue to abuse those substances.
Could that be long term? Do you think?
I think that's a tricky question. Just because a lot of people overdose from drug abuse. And the longer that abuse goes on, the more likely it is to happen.
I'm Brianna. Nice to meet you. Sayla. Hello, my name's Brianna Hood. I'm an interviewer in the field, and I'm here with Sayla. We're going to go over some questions about addiction and hear what Sayla has to say. Why do you think people become addicted to substances?
I think a lot of people use it as a coping mechanism for a lot of different things. Some can definitely be due to some sort of past experiences or trauma that they have, and it's a coping mechanism for them. Other people, I genuinely think that it boosts some sort of, mental thing for them, makes them happy, So I think some people, they do it for that reason. Some people, they get addicted to it and then they can't get off of it, which is part of the problem. Because they are happy with the way that they are. I don't know if that makes sense.
No, I understand what you mean. Why do you think addiction is a choice or involuntary, like a disease?
I definitely think that addiction is hereditary. I think you can have an addictive personality based on your genetics or how your family is, because I come from a family like that. But I don't know. I think it's mostly hereditary. You have to have like an addictive personality.
So it would align a little more with like a disease rather than being involuntary.
Yeah.
What extent do you think mental health issues affect addiction?
Oh, big time. I think mental health affects addiction big time. Like I said, I think it's a big coping mechanism for a lot of people because they don't know how to deal with their own emotions. So they use it as an escape or as a honer to try to like get themselves to focus on something else aside from what's going on in their head.
What do you think is the best way to help people that are struggling with addiction?
I'd say that's hard. That is really hard.
We asked the tough questions, right?
Yeah.
Can't make it too easy.
I would definitely say to try to support people, but don't baby them. Because if you baby them, then you're enabling a bad situation. So I would definitely say try to get them the help that they need. If it is a mental situation, then try to get them the help that they need mentally. And maybe that will help them wean off of it themselves or anything like that, I guess. I don't know. That is a really hard question.
Thank you so much for answering those questions for us.
Thank you for tuning back into CCN. I'm Crystal, and today we heard from two opposing perspectives on addiction. Article 1 holding the narrative that addiction is a pattern of repeated substance use, even when it harms oneself, and that one's relationship with substance use stems from outside factors of themselves, like environment, friends, or even family. In Article 2, we heard an opposing view to the disease model about how addiction is actually the brain adapting and changing based on repeated behaviors like substance abuse, and suggests that addiction is not completely involuntary. This is a topic still widely debated in academic and professional circles, and it is still being heavily researched today. Improvements on our psychological understanding of addiction can help us navigate how to best treat addiction in today's society.